The views and opinions expressed on any program are those of the producers and/or the persons appearing on the program and do not necessarily reflect the views and opinions of FRC Media, Bristol Community College, or the City of Fall River.
Well, hello. Welcome to Spindle City Straight Talk. I'm Chip.
And I'm CJ.
And it is Wednesday in the Riv after a election.
And a city council meeting.
And a city council meeting. We got a lot of stuff to talk about, but quickly, I think we should just quickly address some stuff, and because we got a lot to talk about, national and local. So let me just say that I was told that the mayor finally had a press conference. It was only attended by local media, and he was giving us the big story about how they're doing things and everything else. Well, sorry, Paul, too little, too late. Nobody believes you. You only call that conference after people are on the radio telling you that you're not doing anything. This ATV issue and dirt bike issue has been going on for 2 years, 2 summers, because not this summer, but last summer.
That's right.
I reported 40 bikes at Bedford and Eastern Avenue, now better known as the Eastern Avenue racetrack. Too little, too late. You can't undo your inaction and pretend. And not only that, just quickly, if you really did something, that wasn't much of a press conference. They didn't say much. You know, what a real leader would have done, as soon as this thing started in Fall River, you should have went and called a press conference and put the word out. You endanger the people of Fall River. We are going to prosecute. We are going to confiscate. We are going to be on this from the get-go. And you know something? Like a Lawser did. A Lawser finally got on, but it took a Lawser a while, too, because they don't like to offend anybody.
Exactly.
Or as somebody who called on a radio said, Paul, this isn't the Durfee lunchroom.
Right.
You can't be afraid to offend people when you're a leader. You know, but a Lawser finally put it out, and what happened? They left Providence. Maybe they were the only state a day or two in Fall River if you would have said, look, this is a public safety issue. You made the safety of the average citizen of Fall River secondary. And that's not the behavior of someone who's actually trying to solve a problem. And then we have this little thing, this propaganda piece about we're going to elevate ourselves. And we can't get into this because there's so much for us to talk about. We're going to save that for Monday, because we got a lot to say about this one. So with that being said, you know, the city council again did what they did, and then you can hit these 2 items, and then we'll get into it. Again, they're allowing them not to tell us how much we're paying for 2.5 and how much we're paying for the debt override,
exactly,
which I think is illegal and fiduciary responsibility. I'm going to file a complaint. I'm calling the Attorney General.
Well, the Attorney General won't do anything. She's governor.
I'm still going to call her office, and I'm going to call the Department of Revenue and everybody else.
Yep.
Because I'll file a complaint with everybody. I don't care. I'm a taxpayer. You're answerable to me. That's my money. You're not going to tell me you're going to send a tax bill to me and not tell me how much I'm paying for the 2.5 assessment. That's required by law. How do I know that you didn't exceed your statutory obligation? Oh yeah, we got a debt override. Well, that doesn't give you the right to not tell the people how much we're paying for Durfee either. Remember, Paul, CJ and I were at every single neighborhood meeting where you said, don't worry about the debt override. It's 2023, it's 2018. We might not even need the money. Well, we need the money. And we want to know how much money we're paying, because it's our money. And our Constitution says that we're the government and you're answerable to us. So when somebody comes down there and says, it's hard, I don't want to do it because it's hard. Now this guy said we can't do it. You can't do it, fire him. Get somebody who can. How difficult is it? When you send out the tax bills, you have to know how much you're assessed under 2.5, and you have to know how much you added to that, because you have to do the 2.5 first. Simple addition and subtraction. And if you can't do that, you shouldn't be collecting a paycheck. I'm sorry.
Well, you know, what was interesting about that whole thing was the fact that that came about because it was setting the tax factor.
Yep.
And accordingly, the city council again voted for a 1.75, which is the best they can do for the residential taxpayer. But the assessor's office and the Board of Assessors was saying that Fall River is in the best financial picture it's ever been in. And the amount of increase in tax revenues has gone way up, especially on personal property taxes, which doesn't affect you and I, but it affects businesses.
Yep.
And the one question that was asked was, does the $10,000 exemption still apply? And I heard crickets.
But they don't press them.
No.
They don't demand it.
No, they don't.
That's the problem with the council.
Right.
We had two people asking questions, Kadeem
and
Michelle.
Yep.
Michelle is always there.
Right.
And there's a guy who's a city administrator, by the way, Kadeem, who told him it's not that difficult.
That's right.
You know, this isn't difficult. What are you hiding, Paul? What are you hiding? You don't want the people to know how much we're paying for your
Taj Mahal.
edifice incompetency? You're so worried about everything. And here you're talking about, we gave millions to education. You've been involved with the school department 30 years as an employee, a school committeeman, and now the chief. You're the chief executive officer, the mayor of the city, and the chairman of ex officio chairman of the school board. And what are you doing about it? What are you going to use that money for? You put a new assistant principal. There's a new director of maintenance or something. All you do is add jobs. Apparently, the public might want to know why we still can't crack the top 200 when you keep adding. All you do is spend money. So that's it. But look, we gotta get to this stuff. But CJ, take it over, because when I start on him, I could speak for like 6 months. This guy does nothing about anything, and I'm sick and tired of him trying to con his way through stuff.
I hear you. Well, it looks like the red wave didn't hit the country like they thought it was going to.
Yeah, it was a red ripple.
Yeah, it was a ripple. That's about it. And we still don't know if the House and the Senate are going to be Democrat, Republican. We don't know. We don't know who's going to cover what. Well, it looks like the House is going to go Republican. It looks.
Yeah.
And it looks like the Senate may go Democrat.
Yeah. And you know, I was up late last night watching all the pundits yammer about the whys and wherefores, you know, and what mistakes they made, and you know, everybody's got an opinion, and so do I. But I think, realistically, that there's more than one factor. There's always a dynamic involved in this. But the problem was multifaceted. But the reality is these people have forgotten. Remember the old days when the Republicans were winning everything?
Yeah.
They'd go to different states and they'd see what their hot button issues were.
Right.
And then they'd do it. And just for you, and apparently these pundits that work on these stations don't remember their history. When Bush ran against Gore, the election was decided by Ohio. And what was it decided on in Ohio? It wasn't decided on any of what they thought were the top issues. It was one of at the bottom of the top. It was decided on abortion, because what they did was it's the Bible Belt out there.
Right.
Every church put out something about pro-life.
Right.
A lot pro-life voters. I think he won Ohio by only 400,000, and that's not a lot. It's an entire state. He won Ohio by a slim margin, but every church had a sermon about pro-life, and they sent out over 1 million mailers about pro-life. See, this is targeted. You know, these people are running around now trying to figure this out. Well, number one, the Republicans, they wanted to change, but they screwed up. They put in crappy candidates that didn't appeal to the public. They don't understand that every single locality, every city, neighborhoods within a city have different issues. And if you don't hit that nerve, I hate to say this over and over because everybody says, you should never say Hitler. But the reality is, Hitler had it right.
That's right.
When he said, I speak to them, I use emotion for the masses, and I use logic for the few. And the other thing he said was, if you tell a big enough lie often enough, they'll believe it. So let's look at this. What precipitated these people putting in people that can they're barely functional, like Fetterman? Well, who did they run against them? They ran a rich TV star in a coal mining district, and they forgot that Fetterman's against fracking. All they worried about was, and it was a close election, but the reality is there was a lot of factors. He got endorsed by Trump. Trump is good in some states, bad in other states. The fact is that they used a lot of things against him, but the reality was the guy that he beat in a primary would have blown out Fetterman because he was a moderate. He was perceived as something, and that's the thing. These people don't realize. All these little states, look at Fung was ahead in Rhode Island.
He was.
By 4 or 5 points.
Yep.
And now and you know what the polling now said? And everybody completely, and the majority of people saying, what's your hot button issues? Crime, economy, border. What did the Democrats, 27% of the polling said that the thing that moved them was democracy, that con that somehow threatened democracy, and abortion. The Republicans underestimated abortion. Just like in Ohio many years ago when Bush won it on a side on abortion, because that's a polarizing issue. And many people will make that the only thing.
And what's interesting is we also saw that in the Rhode Island governor's race.
Yep.
Okay? Because he, Kalis was out there saying she was pro-life.
Yep.
Okay? And you had the governor turning around saying, oh no, she's going to attack your right to, having your own rights to your body, et cetera, et cetera. And he played that card, and he played it well.
Yeah.
And because he played it well, he obviously won. I also think the fact that most of the people in Rhode Island just wanted to give him a full term to either screw up or make it. Because we've seen that before, where somebody gets put in, like Sheriff Hodgson, who got put in midterm. He was appointed, and then he stayed in for 25 years. And now he's been replaced by a Democrat. Why by a Democrat? Well, he's had a few things go against him. Number one, he had the ICE facility, which was destroyed, and they blame him for that. Then he had the fact that he was charging $5 a day for inmates, which was struck down. Then he has lawsuits filed against him by inmates for violations of their civil rights. So they're looking at this as money going out the window, and this is what a Republican does. And the fact that Hodgson has been a Trump supporter since day one. And he's gone to Washington, I don't know how many times, to be a Trump supporter.
Yeah, you're right. No, you're right, CJ. And just look at this. He got endorsed by the governor.
Right.
Endorsed by the governor.
Now, in case you didn't notice, anyone who was endorsed by the governor this year lost.
Yeah. Well, obviously the problem is, but as you said, I look at Hero. Is that the way you pronounce it?
Yep, Hero.
Hero.
Yep.
Yeah, well, sometimes I have difficulty with French names because of the way
I sent him an email this morning.
Pronunciations, and I really don't like to mispronounce people's names because to me that's,
an insult.
It is. It's kind of an insult. And like when people
camera.
Yeah, when people call me camera, because there's no E, and in my name, and I knew people are offended. I knew somebody whose name was Gomes, and she used to go ballistic when they called her Gomez.
Yeah.
Because she was Portuguese, not Spanish, and she had an S rather than a Z. But that's common. But let's look at what he campaigned on. Like you said, he campaigned, the things. Hodson had a track record.
Yep.
He doesn't. He made a lot of promises, like they always do. But he also, very subtly, you see, that's the thing. You got to kind of hit these little spots because it's just like Flanagan shenanigans, a whole bunch of different things. Not one thing works on everybody. You got to give them you got to give them that ability to find something that resonates with them.
Right.
And because all elections are personal and local. But I watched some of his campaign ads and I'm saying, this stuff makes no sense. He's talking about, what did he attack? It's this state, the anti-gun.
Right.
I'm going to, more background checks, more. You're not running for the state legislature.
Right.
What the hell are you got as a sheriff?
He was a state legislator.
I know. What do you got to do with it now that you're a sheriff? When you're up in Boston, that was okay to run on.
Right.
But when you're running for sheriff, these people can't even figure out. But see, they want to hear that.
That's right.
Yeah, I hate guns.
Yep.
We got to take away guns.
Right.
And all these little things create, it's for a word that a lot of people may not know, but look it up. It's a very good word. It's called synergy. Synergy means that when you put two things together, they have an impact greater than the two. In other words, when these two things get together, they impact each other and create a dynamic that exceeds a normal mathematical two things have doubly effect. It could have quadruply effect.
They potentiate each other.
That's right. Exponentially, it creates a dynamic.
Right.
And that was a big word years ago in business, and trying to do these things for synergy. But the reality is that when you put a whole bunch of things together, like you shoot at everybody, talking about stuff you can't even do, like background checks, you could have done it as a rep. But all those things together create a synergy because you appeal to a wider demographic.
Which is what you want to do when you're
exactly what you want to do.
But, and speaking from experience, I can tell you that you can tell the people everything they want to hear.
Yep.
Okay? You can hit every button, every nerve, and they still vote for the incumbent because either he's got a Democrat after his name, because in Fall River we still have the people who go, I'm a Democrat, and that's it. They don't see anyone else. And they don't see the issue, they just see Democrat. And there's a lot of people still that are like that.
Oh, yeah, and they're zealots.
They are. And the worst part about it is, as I heard on the radio today, people believe that our children are being indoctrinated into this libtard attitude.
And
that's exactly what we've seen in this Massachusetts election.
Yep.
Especially locally. I mean, look at the Schmidt-Gendro campaign. Evan Gendro got 965 votes, 42% of the vote. Paul Schmidt got 1,311, 57% of the vote, with 3 write-ins. But guess what? 965 is not that far off from 1,300. It is 400 off, don't get me wrong. But that's pretty good for a Republican in a primarily Democratic, poverty-ridden area of Fall River, the Flint.
Yeah.
Okay? Although, if you ask Mike Dion, he'll turn around and tell you, no, the Flint is no longer poverty-ridden. Richer in that section. It's all poverty-ridden because we can pay for parks now. So,
well, as you said, figures don't lie, but liars can figure. But that's the issue here. And
the other big issue in this election was the fact that we had so many people running unopposed.
Yep.
Carol Fiola ran unopposed, although she had 238 write-ins. Okay, Alan Sylvia ran unopposed with 179 write-ins. But neither one of them took the total number of votes in their area. Now, here's the problem I have with this report. And I'm not saying that it's wrong. I'm not saying it's right. But if you look at all of these elections, different ones, none of them exceed 17,000 votes. None of them. But according to this report, ballots cast total is 34,300. Where'd the other 17,000 go?
Well, was my question, too, when I saw that, because...
I sent an email to the elections office.
You're going to tell me that nobody garnered more than, I'm looking at this quickly, what's the top vote?
I think governor.
Governor is...
16,900.
Yeah.
Plus or minus.
So 17,000 out of 34,000, that's a hell of a disparity.
Yeah.
What happened to those ballots?
Right.
They didn't, and now, I got to get back to one fact you talked about, the people vote. Even if people, you tell them what they want to hear, and even if you're doing a good job, the other thing is, unfortunately, we always talk about it, is if they like you.
Right.
Because when we go back to Bob Carrera as mayor, he was moving the city out of debt and everything and doing the right thing, but people disliked him. So that's what's so difficult about politics. You got to walk a fine line, and you also have to connect with the people.
Right.
And look at what DeSantis did in Florida.
Oh, yeah.
He turned that state blood red. He took Dade County, which has always been deep blue. He wiped, he flipped his vote total in this race 33% from the last election.
Right. Right.
He went from down 11% to up 22%. So it was in the last election in Dade County. He lost by 11%, but now he won by 22.
Now,
so it just goes to show he did the job. He hit the right things, and he had a record. Sometimes a record can work against you.
And I'm going to tell you one of the things in this election that I think is very important, and on how the Republicans lost every seat. Okay? Number one, we are a deep blue state. There's no question about it. Having a Republican elected is almost impossible. But on the candidates who are running as Republicans, they got no support from members of the Republican Party. They were fighting each other. Instead of pulling together and putting together a focus, they were all focused on the congressional races.
Yeah.
But the state party did not focus on any of that because nobody ran against Jake Auchincloss. Yeah. So, I mean, even Jake Auchincloss, he got 11,666 votes. 95% of the votes. Okay, but nobody ran against him.
Yeah.
So, well, what do you do?
Yeah, so he got 11,000 votes, but supposedly 34,000 votes were cast.
I think that that's a mistake.
Yeah, it is.
By the system.
It has to be.
It has to be, because when it says precincts counted of 27, it says 0. Precinct registered voters total 0. So somehow or another, I think the numbers got jostled around. I sent Ryan an email this morning. He didn't reply before the show, but I'm sure a response will be coming in sometime today. Let's go to the questions.
Yeah.
Question 1, the 4% surtax. What is it with you people in Fall River? You don't pay enough in taxes? You all voted yes. What kind of?
Well, it was close.
It was close. Granted, it was 1,000 off. It was 51 to 48, but still. Okay. Question 2 was the dentist thing. They all voted yes. They want government to control.
Teeth.
Now here's the problem with that. If the dentists do exactly what they said they were going to do, there's going to be a higher insurance premium for dental care. There's going to be higher co-pays for dental care, and people are going to pay for it. But they didn't hear that, so they voted for that. Question 3 was the liquor licenses.
Big money. Big money wins. Big money, the most campaign ads.
Right.
That's it.
And of course, question 4 for the illegal licenses, for illegals. In Fall River, that got shot down by 2,000 votes.
Yep.
Okay, which I'm surprised at. And in some ways, I'm not surprised because we had a lot of people who were legal immigrants who said they were against giving illegals licenses, but I think came out and voted for this. And I personally don't care. But here's the big one. This is going to have the most major effect on Fall River that we've ever known. The MBTA zone. You'll notice now it's called MBTA zoning referendum. Zoning referendum.
Well, let's be perfectly truthful. That's what it's always been about. Not
Exactly.
about the train.
It's not about the train.
It's about the cabal grabbing all that land so they've been coveting that land for years.
Right,
So-
right. And the people in Fall River voted for 12,841 votes. 77% of the votes went to a yes vote. A no vote was 3,689.
Well, they believe the propaganda. But while we're on that, let me quickly, I got this in this morning. Because in a few years, with the condition of the MBTA, we'll be seeing these same people doing what they did with the charter. MBTA commuter rail is not coming back to Plymouth. Here's what we know. The MBTA is not restoring commuter rail service to Plymouth this July, as local officials and legislators have hoped. There are no plans on the horizon to do so. Quote, the NBTA continues to evaluate both ridership and service levels across the entire commuter rail network, unquote. MBTA spokesman said, quote, no decisions have been made to this point about adding or restoring service. Commuter rail ridership remains about 50% and below pre-pandemic levels, unquote. This again, they'll come, but they might not stay.
That's right.
They're going to reduce services, they're going to increase costs, and they may ultimately bail out of Fall River. And you know something? That train, not going to improve education like these people said with equations on the side. This may never really be a fully functioning rail system, and it may be one with a very short lifespan, because we all know the financial condition of the MBTA. $526 million in the hole going into the next fiscal year after getting $2 billion from the feds. And it's only going to get worse. And they're going to be looking for, down the road, they're going to be looking. This was never about the train. You bought another con. This was never about the train. This is about the rich people getting their mitts on the land and getting unfettered ability to do whatever the hell they want to Fall River. Look what happened in Rhode Island. You had Fung running against a millionaire. So they stick another millionaire that doesn't identify with the people. Fung did a good job in Cranston. But this guy runs, Magazina, is a multimillionaire. So they put him alongside of Sheldon. You can go up there with Sheldon, ride on their private planes, because Sheldon doesn't even know what a boofer is. Sheldon grew up so rich, he has no idea what the average person does, and you put another guy, you stick another guy up there that doesn't know anything, and you wonder why. You get you get the government you deserve.
Well, you know, here's the interesting part. Congress was never supposed to be a lifetime job.
That's right.
Congress was created, the House of Representatives was created so that the average man, you, I, you know, everyone on the street, would go to Washington, serve 2 years, come back home and take over their business again. That's what it was supposed to be. But we've bastardized this whole system, okay? The Senate was supposed to be for the rich. They were supposed to come in, sit there for 6 years, not have a problem, and then if they wanted to make it a life career, they made it a life career because there was no time limit. But the House was supposed to be 2 years for the average man to serve. Like you serve in the Army, you served in the House.
Well, kind of like, you know, you remember, who did we win our independence from? Britain.
Right.
What does Britain go? Our government is structured similarly. There's
Correct.
parallels. House of Lords, Senate, Lords.
Right.
The privileged. House of Commons for the common
House.
people.
Right.
Right? So.
And I like the House of Commons.
Yeah, I do. I love it when they yell at each other because they act like real people.
Yep.
You know, they're screaming at each other.
It looks like we're already out of time. How fast? We will not be on the air on Friday. I want to thank you all for watching. Remember, stay safe, stay angry, and hold your politicians accountable.
And
we'll see you on Monday.
And remember our veterans.